Hi, Kane Michael here, and I'm going to talk a minute about my country and how it's kind of an imaginary country in this state, but I can prove its existence. Okay, so you know how I'm going to prove its existence? Because wherever there are three, there is always simply another. There is always a four linked to a three. But there's not always a five linked to a four, because that's the end of a deck. A deck has 54 cards. So when the last card goes out, that could be the end of the 54 cards. But if the last card is either going to be a five or a three, it's got to be. So it's either going to be an 8 or a 10, leaving a difference of -2 on your last card. So that means that your last card is positive, no matter what. Sometimes cards are negative. Negative numbers are really sneaky. Negative numbers can be numbers can be negative, and you don't even know they're negative. Like change is in the negative form. Change is a physical substance that is in the negative. You can't say that change is in the positive whatsoever. It's less than $1. Anything less than one is decimeric, which is negative. It leans more towards the negative side than the positive side. Once you get over zero point 0.5, you get into this principle that you are more towards the positive side. So what would negative zero point 0.5 be? Can't have a double negative. It's nothing. But anyways, the new United States of America I think we're calling it the new United States of Egypt us again, because Kane used to come all the time, and he used to rally people up and get them ready to go, and then he'd figure out how to get there, and he'd just roll out, and they'd always say Egyptum. It's a city composed of more energy than matter. See, this in this world, the reason why this world deteriorates is because this world leans at like a 6-4 with matter and energy. If you keep matter and energy rated about the same rate, going back and forth at each other, and you keep them trimmed, something will last forever. For example, a car, you tune it from front to back, back to front. And if you do that, you won't usually, and then you go side to side and back and side to side. Like by tuning something, it can last for a long time. But why would you want anything to last absolutely forever? The only thing I would want to last absolutely forever is a body, and flesh is a perfect conduit for something that lasts forever. You don't have to age. Aging happens because most people are only using a double helix. That's a two-pole system. You're obsessing about light and darkness. You're using a two-pole system, and you're only generating your star is only making contact with 2 points on your body. Right now my star is making contact with 4 points on my body. I know that to be certain. And the fourth part, there's a certain activity that I must partake in to activate my fourth part of my consciousness. It's called grounding out. In an electrical system, you have a positive, you have two positives, and then you have a negative, and then you have neutral, which is positive and negative. So let me give it to you: past, present, future. What are we missing? The omnipresent. And then if you got into that, the fifth character of that would be the spoken word. The spoken word can fuck with you badly. That can be a fifth point. That can be a point where the spoken word says, this happened here. The spoken word, you write it when you're plotting your lines. And, six would be like, I don't know, happy medium. I don't know what six would be. You wouldn't want to go over six if you're plotting line segments. A line only needs 6 points. Any more than 6 points, then a line gets complicated. Because dots lead line segments. 7 dots lead line segments. Like the way that God's consciousness works, and it always has, like he is a 7. He is composed of the 7 spirits of light. Actually, that's false. They say in God is pure light and no darkness, but I would say to you that he's probably a 3-4 assessment. He's probably 3 parts darkness and 4 parts light. And with that 3-4, he can generate any energy in the cosmos. So the four parts light are probably all negative, is what I'm thinking. It's all negative light, because the four parts negative light are interesting, because you have negative light good, negative light evil, negative light femme, negative light mask. And with those four energies, you can make lopsos, and lopsos multiply very quickly. They get around each other, and you get nervous because they start licking their lips at each other and stuff. But they're not gay. They're just excited about life. They like life. They're used to the cross days where they pull up to the game and they just get drained and they die. You know, the lopsos, when basically Lucifer put something into the game that lasts forever. Nobody had ever done that before, because even the angel world with the serpent, nothing lasted forever back then. Even the Father. If the Father was truly immortal, he wouldn't have been old. And he was. He was old as fuck. He was an ancient. You know, I will never be an ancient. I'm going to be a 12-year-old forever. My consciousness is based on the consciousness of a 12-year-old. I'll always be like this. I might get smarter, but I'm not going to get ancient or powerful. But, so truly, the Father's body stayed young, but his soul aged. And Mick experienced this, exactly what his father went through, because Mick's soul aged when Mick went through creationalism, when his trials with creationalism. He was forbidden to do any of it because the Father failed in the story, you know. Basically, in this story, you have the Father, who the original Father was. You would never know. You could never know who the original one was. You could never find the original father and son pair, because if you could find that, you could split it and you could rip apart every pair in the universe. And eventually, if you ripped apart the original father-son pair, you would need an original mother-daughter pair to bring it back and rebond it. Otherwise, we would cease to exist on the left field, on that side of the field. I'm really old in the universe, but I'm not going to claim to be the oldest. A lot of people think that I think I'm God. I used to be God, but I'm not God anymore. I mean, most of you have led pretty fantastic lives to get here. You have to know that this life is simple and that you were meant for better things than this. This place is very much similar to purgatory. Nothing really goes on here. I mean, I was going to get to it though. Basically, all these cars and most of the products you use in the world, they're coming from the new United States of Egypt, where they're manufacturing products like crazy. It's a machine world. It's basically the world that Moses led the people out of. It's the world that Moses led the slaves out of, because the slaves, they didn't want to be slaves to them anymore. They wanted to start their own country. So the first thing they do is they appoint a president, and it's like, what? Why would you do that? You know, female leaders, queens. That was how it was supposed to go. Queen and king, like a dynasty. The United States is just funny because a presidential system is funny. I mean, that is a funny system because it plugs up the queen. Because everything's all about polls. When I was on the cross, I was linked to 4 archangels. And the closer I got to Miley, it opened up a 5th and a 6th point. Now for me, my sister Kay was the 5th point, and Jordan was the 6th point, because Jordan is the original man. Jordan is the first man that ever was. He wasn't born. He landed here with a meteor strike. Cain was the 2nd man, because Cain was Jordan's son. Cain was Lucifer's son. It goes the genealogy goes Lucky, Lucifer, Michael, Lucky, Lucifer, Michael, Derek, and Satan is the baby. So when you set up a four-pole system in your game, you have to let in the 5 and 6. And when you let in the 5 and 6, some of your original 4 poles are going to start to shut down, because you can only keep 4 active at a time in an electrical circuit. Electricity only likes 4s. Electricity does not want to get involved in anything over 5. A 5 in an electrical system, when you look at your panel, all those breakers are 5s. Those are points where when you flip the breaker, it connects up, it creates an X. It creates an X. And that is how electricity flows. up-down waveform. But basically, I just keep talking about this stuff, and the more I think about it, I start to believe it. But these are my trials. Jesus Christ was very lucky, even though he died a horrible death. He was surrounded by people that had always known him. He was surrounded by his brothers, his own children. I'm here all by myself. My race left me here. They left me here, and they said, "You're our only hope. I mean, we're gonna go away, and we're gonna build all these vessels we need for transport, and we're gonna build the city, but you're flying a ship that's coming right towards us, and if we can't turn around and slow this down, we're going to crash into each other." And it basically goes back to the fact that long ago, I'm talking long ago, I'm talking before the dinosaurs. You think the dinosaurs are as old as it gets? The Big Bang, I'll tell you what the Big Bang was. Think about the rupture that happened when, if you've ever seen the Transformers movies, you know that the Transformers were inspired by real events. Like, obviously, the transforming of vehicles, I'm not going to say that Transformers made it up, but for vehicles to transform like in the Transformers, that's pretty wickedly cool. That's high-tech shit. You're going to be leaning energy to do that. But if a vehicle is leaning matter, you're going to see a slower transformation where you just maybe find a guy kneeling down on one knee. Where one second you see a car, and the next second you see somebody standing there. Like, where'd you come from? Never mind. But it's all has to do with the 4-point system again. Because the car usually, the wheel makes contact with something that changes the course. It's like train tracks. But anyways, there was an allspark, which was basically a Rubik's cube. It was four. It had four. One, two. It had 6 sides. It was a kingdom of man. It was man's kingdom. The angels had their own kingdom, the magical kingdom. But man was always like science. Man, probably because angels magically created men, and men said, "Fuck you. We're gonna come up with something different that you didn't create." And they did. They came up with science. Science is positive light and negative darkness in the universe, because positive light and negative dark and negative positive darkness and negative light have always existed. That's magic. But science, positive light and negative darkness, those are artificial waveforms. Those are things that, but the thing that's beautiful about them is by experimenting with that energy, we found out that it has always existed in the universe. There have always been 4 energies in the universe. And I'd get back to that the fact of the matter is this allspark that existed at the core of the known universe. It produced 4 types of energy: negative darkness, positive light, negative light, and positive darkness. It produced those 4 energies, and then off of the left and right side of it, it shot a straight line. It shot a straight line out. That was your expansion. If you're a cube, you're rolling. You're a wheel. You're turning. You're turning like this. You're a wheel that's turning, and as you're turning, you're expanding out. So it was a perfect system. Man built a perfect system for expanding the universe. And then yellow suns is what screwed it up, because I myself was a yellow sun. And basically when you're a yellow sun, you like to work. So I was running at like 128% efficiency, and I encountered something that started to drain my power. I karate chopped it. Like it was Mercury and Venus that I got hung up on as a yellow sun. But yellow suns, you have to know that the sun asexually reproduces, which means it has sex with itself. That's how the sun works. So I would say what happens in the sun is same molecule basis. The same molecules bounce off each other. Like hydrogen bounces off hydrogen, gold bounces off gold, carbon bounces off of carbon. They bounce off each other. When you get an interesting reaction, like a different type, it's different molecules bouncing off each other. That's where things get interesting, because that's where new events take place. Believe it or not, I was born in the universe. I have not always existed. I was born because I was born from the relationship that has always existed between God and the devil. 2 points came together at one point. I guarantee you that at one point negative light was traveling at a stream, and negative darkness encountered this negative light, and these two pop, boom, Big Bang, boom, the Big Bang, the Rubik's Cube that was a man's kingdom. Somebody tore it apart. The angels tore it apart. They were scared of it. They said, "What did you build? This is horrible. This is like scary." They ripped it apart. They didn't even know what man was doing. It would have worked if they just would have let him be. But angels have always been, I don't know how to describe them. They think that because they're descended from the Father, that they are dominant over the Son. That's their problem. Just because he was the Father, it doesn't mean that he was smarter than the Son. The Son and the Father were both very smart. They were smart enough to know that a son could be the reason why the son always said impossible to his father is because, like, in that game instance, he was negative light and his father was positive darkness. So he assumed that he was older than positive darkness. Negative light did. I would see that because negative comes before positive. You always have a negative connection before you have a positive connection. So one would think that, how could something have always been positive? I've always been positive in my life, even when I was my twin, Michael. That's another interesting thing about me, is up to the age of 23, I got here in 2007 from the New United States of America, and I brought Miley here. I dropped her. Technically. Not technically. I wasn't goofing around. See, I stepped from a BC realm. I stepped from probably where the Rubik's Cube, like, basically in the past, some of us elders had to step from that cube of man. We had to step from that place to protect that place, because otherwise if you blow that, it's going to destroy the known universe. That's why the angels like blowing stuff up and absorbing the power, but they didn't know what they were messing with this time. This thing is it's not good. Why? Because the explosion would be so great that it would create white space. White space is scary. It's so hot that you can't do anything. You can't do anything. But anyways, man built the perfect system, and what man built there is where the kids came from. We had this mysterious race appear that had all the answers, and some people were scared of them. They said, we need to eradicate them. And that's why they took down the system, because they took down man's system. Man was euthanizing the angels. See, the Father was obsessed with knowledge. He got really old. He got so old. And the Son just liked to goof off and have fun. And to tell you the truth, in life, I'm a lot happier that I just have fun in life than miserable. I have fun in life. I've spent a lot of money on drugs. I've spent a lot of money on alcohol. I've made so many mistakes, but I've had a really fun ride. It's led to some stories. Like, if you're gonna sit next to somebody on an airplane, I recommend me. I'll get you going on something. Some people they have nothing going for them. I mean, nothing. Everybody has something going for them, but anyways, this all-spark creation, what happened in that situation, it wasn't even completely the angel's fault. If you have a cube that flashes, that the four sides flash, and the left and right is where the zeros come out, so to speak. The zeros come out of the left and right. It's not going to work, because eventually those zeros are going to want to come out the top and the bottom. I see a short circuit coming. That's what ripped New Jerusalem apart. New Jerusalem is what I speak of. New Jerusalem was Jesus's place. It was what he built with the cube. Believe it or not, Christ was crucified on a different planet. I can tell you that. He wasn't even crucified on this planet. Maybe he was. I don't know for sure. But he was crucified around 1000 AD. It's my theory that a crucifixion of a man wouldn't cause a great earthquake and different types of things. But what would stop time is a great flood. The great flood that swept through the Mesopotamian region. That flood stopped time. That was an agreement everywhere that time had to do its thing. But I'll tell you what, in the United States, it didn't stop time. So the United States is 1,000 years ahead of the rest of the world. and we're not doing too good. We're not doing too good for being ahead. The 1,000 years behind they are. That's why like Europe doesn't use a neutral in the equation of their electrical circuits. They use 240 volts. It's straight boom down. It's straight blow you the fuck up if you fuck up with that. If you want to learn something about electricity is interesting because you think to yourself, electricity is positive, right? You're like, yes, electricity can be positive. It's all about polarity. Negative, something that is dead, just because it is dead, it doesn't mean that isn't conscious. Death does not exist in the cosmos. Why? Because it's an energy. Because you can't destroy energy. That's the beautiful thing about it, is you have waves of energy that loop around. And basically, if anything that has energy in it puts off lines of flux. Why? Because it's talking, it's making sound, it's thinking, it's creating something in the universe that isn't still. It's moving. When something moves, it creates lines of flux, and these lines of flux cut into each other. Long ago, a negative darkness line of flux and a negative light line of flux were basically, I'll tell you how that happened. My father was negative light and my mother was negative darkness. They were both angels. Angels are particularly negative, I'll tell you that. They're good listeners and they answer prayers and stuff. But these two lines of flux came together and created positive darkness. And of course, here me and my brother were, and we've got one positive darkness molecule, and my brother was negative darkness and I was negative light. So we had to duel for the damn thing. Life is not fun. It's not fun. We had to duel for that. The duel was for paradise. It was for like the home kingdom. And I loved my brother, so I just gave him everything. I said, you know what? You will always want what I want, and I will always be something in the universe, is what I told him. And those two things haunt him forever, because he will always want what I want. And he will always want what I want, and I will always be something in the universe, because the worst that can happen to me is my polarity can get reversed. And I've been through it before, because in the beginning I was just like this. I was a young man, and I chose death. I gave life to my son because that's what I wanted for him, because this is better. This is better than death. But to bring forth the son, I had to die, and I died. And simply the son resembled death more than me, and I was more like life. But I lived so long backwards that I didn't want to go back to straight, because it was an unknown variable in the equation. It was like, okay, if I offered you a choice, I'm going to judge you at the end of your life, and I'm going to give you a brand new life, but you aren't going to remember anything from this life. Nothing. Some people would take the deal because they're that miserable, but that's like death. That is like death, because you start with knowing nothing. But I'll tell you what, you never know nothing, because I've always known how to speak the English language, and I've always known how to write, and I've always known how to do basic math. Those are the gifts given. Babies haven't always existed in the cosmos. This thing that man built, the cube, the cube protected the active elders, and then as we went out in the shells, then you started to get to some of man's babies, which were like primordial ooze planets with lops growing in them, which were like basically matrices. So man was working on matrices, and they're building cars and everything, and the angels were just like, we gotta shut them down. They're making us look bad, because all the angels want to do is play cards. They just want to play cards and go around and look cool and have money. Like, the idea of an angel is like they have $1,444 in their bank account, and they draw money out, and you know what? Their balance never changes. It goes to a low rate, and then it never goes down from there. They get to their lowest point. They get to 1. An angel is negative, so their currency is positive. It can't go below 1. So that's how it's done. I'm bitching about it, but I'm just saying that an angel can't go under a dollar. I'm an angel that went under $1, I'll tell you that. That's why my race exists, because I used to be $1.28. I used to be more like a 512. When I started my game, I was a 512. And I set up 4 archangels, which were like 100% apiece. I said, this is simple. I'm a 512. I'm going to be a 112. I'm going to set up 4, 100 apiece. I'll expand in a space at 100%, the cube rate. You know, even the angels could see exactly what man was doing, and they're like, you know what? We don't need all your science and technology to do this. We can just sit in our stars and do the same thing. Sometimes it would just be as apparent as hanging up a poster. I've always heard of the Richard Gere posters in your room that do a lot of things. Like, I tell you that hanging up a poster and doing things like that to your walls, they do a lot of things. When I first moved in my room, my mom put up this giant fountain under a waterfall where I just remembered that we had sex under a waterfall years ago. You know, because I had a love relationship with Eve. Why? Because I was negative light and she was negative darkness. So, of course, if I was negative light, I would be drawn to a woman who's negative darkness. Positive people are drawn to positive people and they cut each other, and negative people are drawn to negative people. Same, for some reason, I'll tell you why it is. Because long ago, me and Miley were both evil. I was Michael the Archangel and she was Miley. We were both evil, and we could see no apparent reason why we shouldn't be together because our children are brilliant. But we could see why Lucifer and Kay shouldn't be together because they're mean and their children were mean and their children were stupid. So we certainly said to ourselves, we as the smart higher elect can find a solution to this problem because you two are going downhill, we are going uphill. But it was leading to a trip. Basically, the universe has always wanted the original 4 to switch partners. I can tell you who the original 4 were. Michael, Derek, Miley, and Miley. That's who the original 4 were. Michael, Derek, Miley, and Miley. That's 3 M's. So you have DMMMM. You have, it's very interesting. I'd say comes to damn. Adam came in there. You added the A, and then you get the damn. Or mad. Mad has been around for a long time. The English language hasn't always the symbols. English is used for almost every language. The Chinese are crazy. They get so pissed off at English they came up with their own symbolic language. But I remember Lucifer. Lucifer came up to me, and he found me. I was just basically in the father-son game. After the cube let off a signal. Okay, the cube was suffering. So imagine man builds this giant power generator, and there's angels flying around in space that just pull up on Earth, and they're like, what do you got for me? Pack this up for me. And they put a bowl down, and it's the size of a skyscraper, and you got man loading it with, I've seen things like this. It's not as ridiculous as it sounds. It's real. The magical kingdom is like that. Giants exist. I was Goliath working with David for the longest time. David simply wanted to know where I came from and who the rest of my friends were. He trusted me, but he said, you know what? If this guy is coming from a world where they're all like him, what are his accomplices like? And that was what got me into trouble with David, is because he lost his wavering trust in me, because he says, surely if you exist, you give me things, that means someone exists out there that takes from me. And that would keep David up at night, that someone exists out there that would be trying to steal his money or things. And they do. People have hit my dad constantly with theft. But anyways, the angel technology worked against man's technology. So let's think about what the angels built. What man built was simple. They found 0, 0. They found the original starting point of the first cell that ever existed in the universe. In this universe. Why? Because when you do the 1-4 split, you open a wormhole. When you look under a microscope, scientist, and you see that cell divide into 4 parts, you watch out, because you just opened a wormhole. And when it's divided into 4 parts and it's still together, you have a unique way of looking into you. That's what you're looking at when you look at the moon. The moon is always representing those 4 parts. The moon works in 4 phases. The moon is never in an odd phase. You know, basically the moon was the core of the allspark. And the layers were flesh. The layers on the allspark were flesh. 2 were flesh, 2 were crystal, And then the fifth and the sixth were just where the kids came out. That would have been straight metallic. That would have been a straight metal or gelatin. I'm not sure which one, but it would work. I'm probably talking to somebody about something. They're thinking about power generators. Is probably what they're thinking about. Is like most generators, they say you take a rod and you wrap wire around it. But I would say to you, take a square rod and wrap round wire around that. That will work much better than. That's called a stat. That's called a stator. Your stator needs to be square. And even better would be an octagon stator. And then you can get into really complicated designs with that. And things, the more complicated you make it, an octagon stator sounds like you want to break stuff to me. Because if you just use a four-sided stator, it will never break. But if you use an octagon stator, it's more bends on the metal. It could break. But this is great for power generation. I know it was something like that I was working on, because when Lopso approached me, I don't know what I was doing. I was in my room. It's this dark place, and I had this little piece of wood spinning. It looked about that long, and it was about that wide. It looked like a Lincoln log. It was like I could tell by measurements. It was 1 by 1 by 1 by 1 by 4. It was a perfect build. Perfect build. That was Lopso's body he needed. And then I had some dots in my hand. I had 2 of the bodies for him and his friend, and 10 dots. And I basically gave them bodies and money is what I gave them. My place in the supernatural sense, like sometimes you've ever had a dream that you didn't want to wake up from? Of course you have. Because sometimes the sleep realm is better than this world. Here's the thing. We as human beings, if you're a flesh being, you exist in a science world to protect you, because in the magical kingdom, they started feeding on flesh. You're dealing with people at concerts that would just reach out and eat a man. The giants, they would feed on men. So, back to it though. This man's kingdom, as the angels protected the father, basically what was supposed to happen was the father has always required a certain type of attribute to him. The first person who had an asshole in the universe, the first person to have an asshole in the universe is going to hate an asshole. You only need one asshole in a perfect relationship. In a perfect relationship, you only have one asshole. One person expels the waste for the couple. That's like doing the dishes. In a house, you can share the dishes, or one person can take over that task. It's better if one person takes over that task and they're responsible for it, because then there's no argument about it. But if the man carries the waste, the female wears the pants and the sex drive. Because if you're carrying too much waste with you, you're not going to want to have sex at certain points. And she's going to know what you're carrying with you and stuff like that. But like my Miley Cyrus, as the father is working with the angels, man built something that said, hey, we can give you what you want. We can build a body out of this substance that doesn't have an asshole. You don't need an asshole. Food doesn't make you shit. What makes you shit is your gonads. In your body, you're basically, there it is again. Okay, I'll tell you how the human body was laid out. Gonads. Like a 4-pole system. You listen to me, thank you. But they also, God has uses his livers. Like if you found God's kidneys hook up to his testicles and stuff. He's pumping a little extra sauce in the woman, is what I presume. But your organs are like a stator. It's like your stator. You have a heart, you have liver, you have kidneys, you have lungs, you have pancreas, you have tonsils. You're going to find about a system of 12 or 13 organs right there. And then that's based on your sense of sight, and that's based on your 7 senses. So that puts you up to about 24. If you work it right at 24, 24 is what you need to create a perfect sphere. Lucifer built a perfect sphere. I don't know how he did it. He came to me and he throws me something that's perfect. I'm looking at him like, it's Miley. It's Miley's body. Miley's everything about Miley. He throws me that. I'm like, how did you do this? You are sick. You are a man. Your man did this. So I threw it back to him with, what have I given him? If he threw me a perfect sphere, I would have threw him back what I'd been working on, which would have been my story that I wrote. And he would have attached his story, because Lucifer, this world loves the old dark hail, like the tie Satan to a cross and just leave him. Listen, Satan is the one that was on the cross with Michael. The crosses are evolution. That's what when you see a cross, that means evolution. That's what the cross means. It's an electrical symmetry circuit, and Jesus was evolution. Basically, he was a car. When you're on a cross, you want to be in a car. But Derek and Michael's crosses rammed each other. They didn't mean to, but they had to, because they had to combine their powers, because Jazzy, who is Lucifer, was going to take out Michael's cross. I mean, once you learn in the universe that everyone is immortal and it doesn't matter what you do, everyone will survive in some form. That's what happened to Jazzy. Is he became narcissist? It's when you become a narcissist. You don't care, because once you know nobody can die, what can happen to you? Well, you're going to be poor. Get a job. You know, I mean, that's what happened to Jazzy, and he wanted to take down Michael's cross. He was very fascinated by darkness, because he knew that grandfather, basically the grandfather sense, Lucifer has always been attracted to the father's daughters, which are women that can do a nice pull-up. They're strong women. Lucifer needs a club. He likes to be with a club. The father was mean. When you think father, think mean. When you think son, you think sweet. If you can develop a two-pole system, your neutral is based off the fact that it's going to be a left lean or a right lean. So in a system, your poles are always a 5. That's always a 5. And your neutral is always a 1 and a 2 balance. So it creates a 3-5. There you go, God doing 35 with a whole line of cars behind him, like doing 35, and you're like, this motherfucker, straight right at the speed limit, never over. He's funny. But man created this system that still exists today, Miley's world, where they can grow people without assholes. But you don't want to just jump into that, because you have people in this world that have jumped into way too many deals that they shouldn't have made. Okay, if you're dealing with like a transgender, they made a deal somewhere that wasn't good, and now they are suffering, is what it means. Because you don't just suffer from that type of disease out of nothing. You have fucked up royally over the course of your eons of existence, and now you're suffering and paying the price. And hopefully this is your last serenade, your last time of suffering, and the next leap is going to be your leap into something awesome for once. That might have been the deal you took. Most people that, when making deals like myself, I had a really great time for about an eternity before this life. Before my life as Derek Michael, my life was great. I mean, I had a good time. I had a living soul. I was hot. I was the son of God. I had a great life for a long time, and I did a lot of mischievous shit that led to this. And I put everything on. I put all the work off until the end. Like, I was like, fuck it. If I can pop this, I can have a good time for 1 billion years, and then have a shitty time for 128. That's easy, because my billion years of memories of the good times would push that resistor. A resistor in a circuit is a 5. A 5. When you push a 5 into a circuit, you create a square with an X, and the moment you turn that, you add another line to it. And the moment you turn it the other way, like a lock, you add another line to it. And it keeps going on and so forth. When you keep turning it, eventually you get so many compacted lines that you're dealing with that perfect circle effect. You got 99.9999999%. I was 99.99% sure when I stepped for my son that I was going to survive. But there was that 0-1 that really tormented me exclusively. Because it was possible that I could be weakened to a state where I didn't come back. And it's kind of like, some people cry a lot. They cry to God and God fills them with strength. I think that's beautiful, but I don't cry very much. I don't like it. I don't like the feeling. I'm old school. I think crying is for women. I think vibrant colors are for women. I think it's the man's job to even to smell good, that's the woman. To wear makeup, that's the woman. To drive, that's the man to me. To cook, that's the woman. The man doesn't do as much as the woman because the man will always be subject to the fact that I will always sleep. So there's a possibility that I could go to sleep and get into a comatose state and not wake up. I've been there. When we found Cain, he was in a comatose state. He was just sleeping. That's right, my body is Cain Michael from the Bible. You know, I got here from a BC realm. I stepped from that man technology place. We built a Krypton. It was Krypton. You know, it's like the Superman legends. You know, obviously the angels were flesh. We were Kryptonians. So when we sent our babies into these worlds of the angels, they worshipped our children because they had superpowers. Why? Because they absorb flesh. A crystal man, the first thing he does is starts absorbing flesh. So the center of the earth, you're going to find that it's a geode. It's a crystal. It's a piece of crystal, which is eventually going to be my room. And I've got branches for other people that I know, and it's crystal, and it absorbs flesh. So you can basically, if somebody doesn't do what you want them to do, you just turn up your system and you pull from them. You don't give them a choice, but I recommend that you never, ever go over 101%. Don't ever go over 101%. You will regret it. If you roll that 2, you're dead. You know that. So don't do it. Don't ever do it. If you have to lose something to stay under 102, stay under that. Some people won't listen to radio stations over 102. But anyways, this Kryptonian system that the elders built, they would use, okay, so a sperm, so for example, a sperm, okay, just take everything you've ever learned about sex ed and throw it out the window. Listen, they know that babies need to be born, so they're not going to tell you that you can have a butt baby. Yes, you can. Because why? Because look at your testicles. Men produce viruses. A virus is basically a piece of crystal, is a piece of salt, with toothpicks hooked to it. That's a virus. Wooden legs. I have a wooden leg. I have a sicky leg. My left leg. My right leg is sicky. My left leg is lopso. My left leg is metallic. My right leg is wood. Why? Because my right leg is linked to that angel kingdom with the sticks, and my left leg is linked to that man system with the sword. With the shield and sword would have described what man was working on, and the angel was working on the wand, the magical wand. Hey, you ever watch Harry Potter? When you find out that shit's real, that's not gay. That's awesome. Like, that's awesome. I even used a wand for a long time, but I put it down one day and said, you know what? I can touch this stuff. And the moment I touched this dark stuff that I'd been working towards my whole existence, it fucking hurt. So I destroyed it. I mean, you're talking the moment I touched this dark stuff, it's like, hello, friend. Shoved a needle right up my finger. It's like, ow! Dead. And I, boom, popped it. But what's scary in the universe to me is what we could find in the universe. Because obviously if a system variable existed where both kingdoms could have expanded if the damn thing could have worked, we are going to find that out there. There's no telling what you're going to find. Because if they've had it working for a long period of time, you never know what you're going to find. But kingdoms need to get along with each other. The universe is a big place. And like I said, space is infinite. Why? Because you have to figure that somehow what caused Lucky is Lucky was in a magical kingdom where most people were playing a game where they had a wife and they had kids, and then they would cheat on their wife. They were basically married to their brother or sister, and then you cheated on your wife. You lived a life of sin. Angels like sin. You either have dark angels or light angels. And it's kind of like why drugs make me feel so good is the sin effect of it, because I'm violating the commandments without repenting. I just repented for some of the drug use I've had in the past, because when I think of something I do wrong, I do repent for it. But like, I'll tell you what, there's nothing better than a cop smoking a bubble You're talking the best butts you've ever even thought about. Why? Because it's so wrong for them to do that. But you're talking they would get the best of the best of it. But you ever get caught doing that, you're gonna lose your job. But it possesses a function, the function of how illegal it is. And you'd be amazed at how much evidence and stuff in the police where they confiscate drugs from people and those drugs hit the street again. You would be amazed. It's funny. You think a cop really, when it comes down to it, that's assigned to a drug task force or something? You know, they just ask people to fucking keep things. What pisses authority figures? I'll tell you how cops think. They're like, you think I'd do that to you? I'll fucking do that to you then. Yeah, I'm after you. You know, you think that they're after you? As my thought broadcasting, like I had gotten a recent situation where I overdosed on cocaine. I thought these people were cops. Like, you think we're cops? We are fucking cops. And, you know, that was the attitude of it. It was like, this fucking sucks. And I thought my friend's girlfriend was like a high-ranking CI or something. Like, and I thought my fate was in her hands. And I was just like, I'm so scared of the chick. And I thought she hated me. And it bothers me the most that somebody would hate me, that I could ever wrong someone. I have a mouth on me. You know, sometimes my mouth spits out some words that maybe some people don't agree with. And I like to run my mouth. I'm always talking. But you know what? People that talk a lot, they're usually very trusting. Miley isn't very trusting. She's not the most talkative person in the world. God is. God's more talkative than me. He's more trusting than me. It's funny. And if you haven't caught on by now, God is Miley's twin brother, Lucifer, who was once the father. This is funny because he was the original serpent that walked through the garden. And so man builds this man temple kingdom thing, right? So it's like, okay, we've got to send one. Okay, so they've built it over. Man will always build it. They will always build it, and they will always keep building it and keep building it. It's structure. It represents the first country that ever existed. There's always four parts to everything. So I'm sitting here as the Archangel Derek. There's a part of me that leans Michael. That's my car. There's a part that leans Lucifer. That's God. And there's a part that leans Satan. The Satan part is my mom, is my sister. You know, that's why they said Satan is bitch. But there are some male Satans. It doesn't mean you're bitch. It just means you allow the woman to control you because she's giving you good sex. But man will always build it. And what I'm saying is that the first couple times man probably built it, the Derek eruption, like they said, okay, Derek is strong. Derek is this. The angels, they're obsessed with the father, right? So the father said he'd set up a 4-pole system. He wants to set up a 4-pole system. So he's setting up a 4-pole system where he has a ground. He's the ground in the system, and he wants to be death. He can be that. And then he wants 2 sons, one negative, one positive, and then he has a negatively and positively charged system. That's why his system wouldn't work. You need 2 positive sons. The father was dumb. He set his game up with a positive light on the left and a negative darkness on the right. Eventually, he set his game up so Derek and Michael, his 2 sons, Derek and Satan, would ram into each other, and that explosion would fuel the perfect. That explosion would fuel the death of his 2 sons. Would fuel an explosion that would create his wife with no asshole, and then he would project himself onto Michael's body, project the head onto Michael's body and be with the woman. That's basically what happened. I mean, as much as I hate to say it, this was my plan. I knew Derek and Satan had to die. It's as simple as that. If you know that, I would have rather Derek and Satan die than Michael. They were the older brothers. Michael was the 3rd oldest. They were 1 and 2. So the biggest problem about Satan is he's always been a number 2. You know, you've seen that South Park episode where Bono was obsessed with being a number 1 because he's a number 2. He's a piece of shit. And it makes sense because Satan was flesh. Derek was crystal. The original Derek was a man. You have to deal with the fact that men... You ever look around at people, you see some people are white, some people are tan, some people just hold their tan. I'm one of those people that holds their tan. And I'll tell you, people that hold their tan, they're either You either don't know anything about them or you know everything about them. People like me are either the best deceivers you've ever met, or they can totally come up with anything, any type of story to cover themselves, or they're just a simple good old boy like me. But white people are always lying because white people know. White man knows the truth. They know about all this stuff I talk about. YouTube, like they know all this stuff I talk about is true, but nobody pays attention. Nobody cares. It's like, how do you not care about this stuff? I'm talking, there's people on the moon, okay? And we're searching for life on other planets. Okay, start with the moon. The moon is targeting us. It's like the moon keeps us in check. That's the Death Star. That's man has built this thing, and the moon is basically their bullseye, their crosshairs, and they aimed it at the angel paradise, and said, "What are you going to come up with on your side?" What angels have always come up with is a story. Angels will give you a story that'll make the science work. And they have with their obsession with the Father. You know, it's like the Father was the root of angels and the Son was the root of men. But the moment I was born, the moment my points crossed, my 4 brothers were born as well in the cosmos. And it represents in my first cross, there it is, Cain. I was Cain Michael. So my second cross, I was Cain Michael in my first cross. And in my life of Cain Michael, I would have been Satan. No, that was the last life. I was Derek. In my first life, Derek always dies. I mean, Derek always has to die. It sucks. Anytime Derek's come through, it's like the best guys and they just die. And so in my first life, I was Derek and I died. Why? Because the serpent killed me. Why? Because we were sent here we were as men from our system, from our hive, from what Miley's kingdom, we were sent to these angel planets to either get them to surrender their women, their riches, everything, or their men surrender their technology, or we blow up their planet. If they were concealing from us, they were an enemy of the state and they would be dealt with. They'd be blown up. So I was supposed to have sex with the woman in the vagina, and Lucifer was supposed to have sex with her in the ass. And when we hit those with an angel is based on a 3-pole system. So if you can block their neutral, an angel will swell. That's what happened to this woman. And somebody had screwed up the woman that, in my book, the woman that Jazzy encounters, somebody had screwed up this woman's plumbing long ago. She was a big fat hog. She was a hog of a woman. And, Jazzy fell in love with her. He said, one of my kind mistreated you. And Jazzy's beautiful. He was a virgin. And you'd think a woman who was mistreated by a man in the past, and the man that had mistreated her and fucked up her plumbing was Adam Sent. Why? Because Adam Sent, he would have anal sex with his own daughters. You know, he always wanted to be the first to try them out. But if you're a father and you have sex with your daughter first, it's going to screw up her plumbing. Why would you ever do that? You know, my brother Corey has daughters, and I guarantee you he learned from what happened in the past. He didn't try that, because otherwise his daughters would get sick and fat. You know, all these fat... I'm bringing up a reference point that if you're fat, it probably means because you had sex with your dad at some point in your life. That's the God's honest truth about it. And we shouldn't feel sorry for these people. They say they have thyroid problems. Yeah, it's from having sex, giving their dad blowjobs, or giving their dad a hand job, or any type of physical contact with their dad. You know, and I'd almost guarantee it, because most of these big girls you meet are daddy's girls. You know, the relationship with a grandfather would be the same thing. They say that the lust in your heart is just as... If you are married and you lust sex and you think about sex with another woman and you don't say to your wife, "I'm sorry for doing that, honey," you have problems. You have serious problems. That shit, you let that shit go, you're going to experience what I did. And say your life, like me, and you sin long enough, suddenly you die. And you become death. And the thing about death is it's not rewarding. Like, Miley likes it because she's an ancient. She likes being an ancient. She likes being super intelligent with math. Anything she can... Like, as I described this to her, this is her explaining to me what she's doing on her side, on the Nebulon galaxy. Why? Because the Milky Way galaxy is a Y. We're in a two-pole system. The old United States and the new United States. The new United States is empty. It's like I built something that is exactly like this country, except it's brand new. But Lucifer is terrified of what I could have created because he knows that I don't like to work. I don't like excessive work. Lucifer loves excessive work. When we built Egypt, that was the new United States. He got there and God was impressed. He was great, but he saw the work ending eventually. Eventually there'd be no work. People would just enjoy themselves, you know. You have your coffee in the morning, you talk to your wife, you send the kids off to school. Well, shit, what do? Maybe I'll write a book, maybe I'll work on my writing, watch TV, do things. I get a base income from my country of roughly $14,000 a month, and that's enough to pay my bills. If I want to make extra money, I have to do something else. You should never. The thing is, you don't ask to be born, so why the fuck should you have to work? That's my question. You don't ask to be born, so if somebody brings you into this world, you damn sure better get a paycheck. You know, I can't believe we live in a world, but banks love it because the way banks, it's the four-pole system again. Like bankers, everybody's getting excited about what I'm talking about because it's money. Did you see how I told you about the zeros that come out of that square? The square? That's money. I just showed you something that if you could do it with money, you generate a lot of money. And you do it with 1s, 5s, 20s, and 50s. You leave $100 bills out of the game. Why? Because in our country, $10 bills have Miley on them, $100 bills have Miley on them, $1,000 bills have Miley on them, $10,000 bills have Miley on them, $1 bills have Miley on them. So 1, 10, 100, 1,000. That's where you stop. We don't have anything over $1,000 bill. Why? Because you'd be the fifth it'd be the fifth point. It'd be bad. But I do believe we have like a $128 bill, which would have me on it. You know, why not? Can you imagine this mug on a presidential bill? You know, I'd laugh at it if I ever got to a country and listed the money and I was on the money. I'd feel like I got it made, you know? And that would be fun. But anyways, back to the story. So my first life, I was negative light. And my partner was also negative light. My partner was negative light evil, and I was negative light good. They tell you that good always triumphs over evil. It does not. He killed me. The serpent killed me because I was negative light good, and I wouldn't have sex with the woman's positive darkness evil vagina. I knew she wasn't right for me. And because I did this, we had to fall into a story, and it pissed my partner off. Why? Because he hates Satan. Like my partner, he hates him. But the moment he opened the first door and he saw all the doors click together, he said, "Yeah, you did me a solid there because you led me." Why? Because Lucifer. Because if I would have had sex with the woman, she would have wanted me. But since I didn't have sex with her, he gave her the butt treat and showed her something that she loves. Eve loves anal sex. You know, there's nothing more arousing to her than a guy sticking a huge hog. Huge dicks are made. You see a guy with a huge dick? It ain't made for pussy. Pussy can only take about what I got. I've only had like 2 accusations that I've got a small dick. And the thing is, when you're dealing with pussy, if you have a large vagina, which is possible because some people are giants, and they work in a higher phase system. Like I told you about me, I'm 4 pennies. So I'm coming up on turning my nickel life. In 2023, November 26, 2023, I will be 5 years old. My consciousness will be 5. When my consciousness turns 6, I guarantee you I will present a new ability to you. Why? Because my song started at age 3. That's why you set up the father game, is because it generates the song. You set up Michael on your neutral, Satan and Derek. Satan and Derek are supposed to watch out for their baby brother Michael, and Michael is trying to get to Lucifer. What was really genius about the plan is somebody long ago in the cross game, Lucifer is old. Lucifer is really old. Long ago, they must have. The father, the great father and the great mother had to have shared touch. When the moment that the father put that body on Miley, The moment he touched her with that body, Lucifer would have been born, but he was born before that. He existed before that. But I would almost say that he put that body on her. You better put the same type of body on the brother too. And I bet you Lucky built two perfect bodies. Cain Michael and Miley Ray Cyrus. He built those two. And he would have been in love with his creation, and Lucky could have leaned female if he wanted to, and we have nothing against that because he was in a state where he was quantum entangled. He could have leaned woman or man, and it wouldn't have been disgusting because it would have been disgusting to many because there's legend that Lucky could give himself blowjobs. I've had to do that to get myself out of a pinch before in a dream, but yeah, back to the tech stuff though. So, in the universe, we know can someone come up with a superior method to power generation than a perfect system with 4 poles, a ground, that's 5, and we actually break our own rules. We get into a 6th point, which is the neutral. But once you're at the 6, it's easy city. Once you're at the 6, like I told you, when I turn 6 years old, my life will no longer be a struggle. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe I'll go to a Miley concert and we'll be in communication I'm already in communication with Miley, but eventually I'm going to know her. She's going to be my friend. And people are going to have to deal with that. No, my Miley, yeah, is she the famous one? No, my Miley is God. She's God. It's worse than you could ever imagine. It's not that she's not a famous celebrity. She's God. She's Lucifer's mother. Lucifer is obsessed with being God. So the older the Lucifer. The thing about the Dones is it sucks to be a Don. Why? Because if you encounter another Don, you're either going to have him take a knee to you, or you're going to have to rival with him. I've watched it. There was my friend Chris Torpy and Jordan Doan got in a fight over who was going to guide me. And Jordan Doan knocked out Chris Torpy. I always felt bad for him, but that's what he had to do. That was an obstacle in his way. I don't know where Jordan is. Somebody should say a prayer for him because he's probably locked up. Otherwise, he would have been getting a hold of me. I don't see him ignoring me, but maybe he did. I don't think it would be fair if he was locked up because I'm not locked up, but I think it would be fair that maybe he has to take some time away from me because I have to think he's locked up. It'd be funny. He also changed his name to Jordan Ross. My Jordan Doan is the funniest character in my book. He's the best. And I did read a book. It's called Revamped, a Genesis Paradigm. I discuss a lot of this stuff. I didn't quite have the equation completely solved. I experiment with this equation. Now that I have it completely solved, if I were to rewrite the book, I could explain things a lot better. But basically in the system, what's always been complicated in the system for me is understanding how the females work. Now the females, what you have to understand is if you're with a woman, she's going to have male friends. You can't keep your woman without male friends. Your woman has to have male friends. Like my friend, he has a girlfriend and I'm her friend. And I was thinking if a woman read my book, I was like, she'd fall in love with me. Like, no, they try to laugh at you because you're like an egotistical moron. Yes, I am. And that's the thing about it is just because you love and infatuate yourself with your own emotions, it doesn't mean that people around you feel that way. Bonds are built in this world, and many people in this world, I'll tell you what's cool about the universe. You can run from the binary system, the ancient binary system that still exists, which basically, that's something out there. Basically, the black stuff in the universe, the black stuff has always been the separation of stars. When two cells separate from each other, the further away from each other they get, the more black stuff they produce. You see how this system works? You see how you could do this? So if you're dealing with quantumly entangled particles for communication purposes, you have two quantumly entangled particles and you separate them. You bring them to a point where they're at 49% separation. The moment you hit that last one, give them a choice is all I'd ask you. Look for the signs of which one would want to do it, why would they want to do it. You look for every signal you would, and then when you do that, you break. But the moment you make that break and you hit that 50, you're going to have a center point. That's the formation of a yellow sun every time that happens. And then you're going to have 4 points jump around it. which is the moon, the sun. Yes, the moon, the sun, Mercury, and Venus. 4 points. That's the box. They say that Mercury and Venus are closer to the sun than us, but that's wrong. Here's my question. If Mercury and Venus exist there, why aren't they bigger in the sky? That's my first question to you. Why don't I see them? If the moon is there, the moon is described. I see the moon, but I don't see Mercury and Venus. They're a normal-sized star. That makes no fucking sense. I'm tired of the lies, but man has always concealed their technology. And the moon is like a giant video camera on Earth because Earth is a nature preserve. Of course, the angels have always loved evolution. Why? Because they're creationism masters. They know how creationism works. Angels have been running creationism since the beginning. They don't know how evolution works. They've known that man is hiding their technology. That's what they've always known. And they've known that man has always existed. That's what shocked the angels is like man set up a trap. They said, okay, well, if we separate this, we could take two quantumly entangled particles. Angels like cutting our children apart from each other, our soulmates. They like stealing mates they like cutting our children apart and tormenting the lucky bot. So if they like doing this, let's give them what they want. Let's give them the original lucky bot that we built. And they gave them me. And they hailed to me as father. Father! Man built me. We all came from men. Angels are a creation of man. That's the truth of it. But angels feel so superior to man. You know what I call an angel? An angel is something that a car. Okay, you're driving in your car feels great. You get in a wreck, you're wadded up, that car's totaled. That car may not have a pivot point. That car may have to stay in that junk state for a while. But the cars are selfless. Cars have a choice. Sometimes they could hurt their owner instead of getting wrecked, and they don't. Most cars could stick it up your ass before you get in the wreck and fly off into space. It happens. It's a real system. Big Daddy Kane set up a system kind of like that, where basically, if you've ever seen South Park with the gyro machine that he drives, those things are real. Almost everything you see on South Park is real. I'll just inform you of that. If you can get down with South Park, how all that stuff is real, how Harry Potter is real, and I'm going to say what Sean said a long time ago that I know he damn well said. Everything you see on TV is real. Once you can accept that, you can work with me. But if you can't accept it, it's a real story, is it not? It's happening right there. They are projecting a real story to you from a place where they are acting in the story. So maybe their story was fictional, but now it's a reality. You know why? Because it's happening right there. That's a simple truth. And then you say to yourself, how do actors even act? It's like they take these roles, and it's like most of them just do drugs and stuff like that. I take roles. I get on different videos. I talk differently. My friend says I have multiple personalities. I do. I have 5 personalities, and my 6th personality is what I'm working on. That's this one. That's the way I feel right now. But yeah, back to man's kingdom. The originals, you figure if man's originals, they had 2 swords and a shield. So they lost a sword to Cain. Why? Because Cain came through there and said, if there's 2 swords, I could take my knife and twist it and spin those swords and it would open up and I could go in there and see what they're hiding from us. Cain found out the son of God, Cain, the son of the father was God. What's funny about that is man created God. The man created the first lucky bot. I guarantee you, their system. I was born from the system that man built. So the magical kingdom existed, and some of the people were probably born with no magical powers. Like some of these people, what did they call them? Muggles? Muggles love science. You shouldn't pick on muggles because the science can do the same thing magic can. Because with science, you could give somebody magical powers that doesn't have magical powers. But with magic, you can't give somebody magical powers that doesn't have magical powers. Miley's world is exactly like the Harry Potter world. I've seen her cars, like she drives like a maniac and stuff. Her life is perfect. She has grace. She doesn't live in fear that it's too good to be true. She constantly thinks it's too good to be true, but her life is graceful. She has grace. I fed her my grace. I remember a time when I was with Miley. Um, her body had a hole. She doesn't really remember it very well. I'm glad, but we were together, and I had to keep letting her go with God because we were working on that hole. We were working on getting that thing fixed up. But I always wondered if she was in love with him and just playing me. And I was under the impression that some toys, like, if you really learn about wizards, a wizard's true wand is his dick. You know, like, a wizard's wand is his dick, and masturbation is a form of magic. You know, it's like the father went into a dark place and started masturbating. You tell me he didn't. He did. That's what the father game was. You surround yourself with men, and then you masturbate. But imagine, in a sense, imagine they built the first one, the first man kingdom. I guarantee you what happened was the father said, I'm science. I'll build this. Mother will be magic. And he did it. And they said, no, no, not you, not you. They hated the science, the father of science. So they destroyed him. And they said they did like this mother of flesh. This great mother of flesh, which would be Aphrodite. Aphrodite, I'm not sure, but I think she's flesh, but she doesn't have an asshole, which it kind of leads to the fact that her area feels kind of Gucci. It feels like a gooch, her area with no asshole, which some people would be like, yeah, I'll take it. And I'd be like, yeah, if I could, that'd be fine with me. If Miley had that, I wouldn't care. My shit feels kind of like that. It's just when you encounter the same thing from your partner that you have, it creeps you out. Okay, so if your gooch is smooth, hers should be more like sandy. Sandpaper, the opposites. Opposites attract, not same-side relationships. But that's what happened is the father said, I'll be science, you be magic. So the woman was, originally women were supposed to be magic and men were supposed to be science. So men have been practicing the game exactly the way it's supposed to go because men have always supposed to be science. But angels wanted to be magic. So you're dealing with a man like Big Daddy Kane. He's dealing with his two sons, Lopso and Sicky Leg. They want to join the magical kingdom. He says, I'm going to take them out. Big Daddy Kane shot twice. He shot Lopso in the head twice. And the first shot knocked him off his horse, took his horse from him. But we were at war with Kane. We loved magic. Why? Because we wanted magical women. Kane's mistake was he loved science so much, he said science on science. Woman of science, man of science. I'll tell you what you lose there. That's when you start to do this system. You're fucked. Fucked. See, you have no conscience. That's what science does to you. Once you realize that you've built a perfect system and there are people that are always trying to destroy your perfect system, you say, fuck them. I'll never let them get to my baby. And this machine I've described to you, it is my torso that I carry with me. It hates me. Hates me. You ever think that you carry your own worst enemy with you? If my opposite exists, for me to exist in this state, to this state that I've reached, he had to fall a few pins. My opposite, I'm pretty much my base would have been negative. Positive darkness in the universe, it's an unnatural presence. It hasn't always existed. Negative darkness, in the beginning, there would have been 4 negative poles and 4 negative poles. Negative on negative. God divided the waters. That's negative on negative. All negatives. You're looking at negative darkness and negative light. That's all you got. And once he divided the waters, that's how a star starts. A cell splits into 2 first. So you divide the waters into 2 parts, negative and negative. And these negatives wind up crossing on each other and 2 positives appear. And that's when it gets interesting because they start flashing back and forth. Then you have something like a resistor, the way that a resistor balances a load. And the way a strobe light works, it's a strobe light. So I would guarantee you, if you want your cells, if you turn on, like they do in labs, if you want things to happen in labs, you turn on the strobe lights, you turn on the fog machines and stuff to make a romantic setting for those things. It will work. You play music. That's how you get things to mate. Like labs, I'd love to have a lab and do work. I'd love it. I would never stick needles into cells unless I absolutely had to save its life. But you don't poke the cell. I've always thought you could design a needle that is tech that would vibrate fast enough to insert a medication without ever actually puncturing the skin. The reason why you bleed is because they stick something in you that stretches the skin. The needle prick. I get a shot over once a month, so I know what shots feel like. Sometimes they're easy, sometimes they're not. But the conspiracy is what pisses me off. I have a few followers that listen to me and they're like, yeah, he's right. That guy's right. And I love those people like Zuccotti. He's like, I listen to him because he's right. Everything he says. And it's like, he doesn't go around and probably tell people about it because they'll think he's crazy, but he leads an interesting life he sounds like an isolated man to me. Zuccotti was living out of his car and he has a job, but he lives out of his car. Which you could do that. There's nothing wrong with that. I can't live out of a car, but it tells me I think he is a car. I think he is a car, so I think he's my car. I communicate with my car once in a while because he's that busy. Like right now, I don't have eyes on it. I don't have eyes on the car out there. It doesn't have to be sitting there. It doesn't have to be sitting there because I don't have eyes on it. The only time that car has to be there is when I walk out there and I look out there. Is it there? How many times have you lost your car and nobody stole it? It just disappeared. It happens. Things just disappear. It's only about 1% of the time. 1% of the time things disappear. That's how much so say you have 10 friends and something disappears from you, probably one of your friends is a thief. But if you're solid with your system and create an experiment where none of your 10 friends would have stolen from you, you have something of an equation that would be useful to people because you have shit that is doing things it isn't supposed to. I'll tell you how the thing that men built, men have always valued possessions. So you're dealing with the first one that built this thing would have been the father. He would have taken his 10 greatest possessions and he would have surrounded himself with those. He said, all right, I'll never get rid of this stuff, but I can get rid of all this other stuff I got. As long as you hold on to 10 things. There's 10 things I'd never get rid of. I mean, some people are attached to their bongs, their drug paraphernalia. If I could keep 10 things. Just think about that. If you don't have much, try to keep 10 things in your life. Homeless people, keep 10 things in your life. Don't part with them. You have to get back. That's like you could write a book on that. How that'll get you back on track. And maybe I should check my wallet for a $10 bill. And now that I think about it, if I got a $10 bill, I should probably save that $10 bill and just hold on to it. I don't have a $10 bill. Otherwise I would, and I'm not meant to. Money, I don't know if it works like that, but I have a card that's Miley I hold on to that I won fair and square. What I struggle with is where did the universe come from? And it's like, universe. It's before stories have always created portals into the multiverse system. So there's always been forward propulsion in the universe, right? Things have always been moving in the universe. But this all worked long ago. Somebody was doing something. I remember living in a place where I was awesome and everybody loved me. But I never really thought about it that I'm making all this work, that I'm the core of all this. Like I'm the root of the lucky bots. I was just a lucky bot. Everybody loved me. It didn't matter that I was exceptional. They're all exceptional. My race, we're all the same. The only difference is God wanted to study us. He wanted the original one he lost. You have to figure the reason why I'm not one with God is because Cain cut me from God to show me something that I needed to see. The suffering of his tribesmen. My body is from the angels, but my soul is Lucifer's son. Lopso. My soul is Lopso. And Big Daddy Cain's son is Sicky Leg. It's not even that. It's like Cain doesn't even have to do anything anymore. He's a judge, so he keeps the authorities in line around me about things that have to happen. Basically, my federal judge, I remember being him. I said, take this shit back. I wouldn't do it. I would not do what he does. Like, I said, take this shit back. I told the feds, take everything you ever gave me. I worked for the CIA, I think, for a long time. My body did. My body worked for the CIA for a long time until he realized what they were doing. They were trying to get the CIA analyst. The first thing an analyst does is they cause confusion. That's what a CIA analyst does. They cause confusion. They get chatter going. I met a CIA operative. They are paranoid. Have you ever seen a CIA operative that can live off the land? They can do a whole show off living off the land. You aren't going to survive anywhere I go, kid. You don't know how to live off the land? And that's like going to sneak it. It's stealing. You sneak into somebody's yard. You pull their clothes from them. You pull canned goods from their locker or something, you cook them. That's living off the land. It's theft. It's not a unique talent. What, are you going to set up a trap and you're actually going to catch something and cook it? That's theft too, because God owns those animals. But the Father, imagine a person who's always known he's a devil and says, why does God always beat me? Like there's like Jarrell in my books that I lost. He says, God. He says, they worship God. I do so much for them and God. It's funny. There's a whole story about this guy named Jarrell, and he is from Krypton, and he works with his brother. I wouldn't know what his name. He works with a Kal-El, and Kal-El's son is the savior, and Jarrell's son is a drug user. And Jarrell deals with the fact that no matter what his, say the Cal son does drugs, they don't look at it bad. He needs those. But the other one does it, and he's the black sheep. It's the distribution of white sheep and black sheep. The thing about me is my soul is white. I'm a binary star. I surround myself with twos. I'm surrounded by twos. Imagine that. So if you're looking at me, the inside of me is a one. Why? Because I identify as the Father, the original Father. But I was born in a system from facts that fathers were dying. In my system, the way it should have worked, because a father should always die for his son. And the son would say, no, not true. Sometimes sons should die for their fathers. And that's true. That is very true. Like, my dad is going to die for me eventually. He's getting older. I mean, there's no way we can... I don't know. I don't know why people age. I know I'm not. I'm not partaking in this getting old and dying thing. I'm not. I got in a car accident and I woke up in heaven. I woke up in old heaven. I'm in old heaven. That means if I keep going backwards in old heaven, I'm going to wind up in new hell. I'm going to drive home to new hell one day. I live in new hell. Right now, new hell is empty. Why? Because it's hot there right now. Why? Because global warming is occurring here, and it's really hot in new hell, which is cleaning it. It's probably sanitizing it, because we're gonna move in there. So basically, I guarantee you, global warming is gonna end. It's not gonna take it to the point where they talk about the sun expanding and gobbling up the universe. That just won't happen. Our sun, why that's unique, is we created that. That's like a giant campfire. That didn't always exist there. It's paired with Venus. Why? Because that's the 1-4. Venus is the fourth planet from the sun, you will find. The moon is the third. Earth is the third. And the moon is the second. What the fuck is Mercury? It's a little mercury switch. It's a little chunk of liquid. Something that got way too hot, and somebody threw the liquid in front of everything to see what it would do. They just proved that Venus is the fourth planet from the sun. How did we prove that? I'm trying to remember that conclusion we came to for that. I don't even remember. That sucks. But it was interesting. I can tell you that. Oh, I remember. Because the 1-4 split. Venus used to be tethered to something that was God, and it died. The moon. Venus used to be tethered to the moon. So the moon and Mercury have always been at war about who was going to be the first one. I bet you'll find that the moon is between the sun and Earth. You will always find that. You always find the moon is right between the sun and Earth. And then it pisses out Mercury, and it shits out what? Yellow canary juice. I have no clue. But I hate the concealment. I hate how men pride themselves on their, because what surprised men is some of the stories that the angels come up with, because they read some of them, they can't be true. It just can't. It's scientifically impossible. And it's like, really? You've seen Peter Griffin, where the one where he loses his bones. You know, that episode was interesting, where his family had to give him his bones. You know, I thought for a while that my family members were dying, and they were the meth I was smoking. I really thought that, because you can make meth from dead bodies. By the way, they are into that trade. Like half the time when bodies come up, they get turned into meth. Like if I ever die, I'd say smoke me. That's what you need to do with me. If I ever die in this body, you need to be very careful about what you do with that, because that product is going to be really primo. It'd be really good. I don't know where I'd wake up. I'm trying to figure that out if I died. I can't imagine losing an arm or something, losing a leg. Some people can't imagine being as handicapped as I am. It's nothing. It's easy. I'm gonna end the video, but just think about the man. Okay, so man was a sword, two swords, and a shield. That was man's stance against the angels. What was the angel's symbol? We need that. I guarantee you're gonna find the anarchy symbol. Is what you're gonna find. That was man. So that's the A and the Z. So man represents Z. One man, zero angel. I can already see it. So what's man do? They flip their anarchy sign upside down. They show you an upside down anarchy sign. And it says, here, have a cup of tea with me. What, you gonna poison me, motherfucker? You angels are some real pieces of shit. You know? I can kind of see why Lucifer fucking hates angels. They are pieces of shit. They lose the battle, so he offers a truce, and they want to poison him? Lucifer is smart. He knows this stuff. Like, he thinks like this all the time. I'm having a Lucifer day. If I was to say which archangel I'm leaning like today, it's Lucifer. Yesterday I was leaning Derek. Actually, no. Yesterday I was leaning Satan, because I was a rock star. I was like a rapper. I got the English rap back, which is cool. This video is long. It's going to take forever to get up. I'll see you guys later.